This is Duke University.
Two years ago, the Friday before orientation, I was moving my family from near Birmingham, Alabama, to this strange land called Durham, North Carolina. It's different than where I'm from. The barbecue's a little odd to me. They do things called pig pickings. Basketball here is very important. I had to learn that. I come from a place where football is important, but here it's basketball. But the main thing here that excited me was to be here at Duke Divinity School, like you are today. And that Friday before orientation, it sounds late, that's when I was moving. We were hoping to come here, but late in the game, my wife's job did not work out. But then suddenly something happened. In the bottom of the ninth inning, she got a job, and we were able to come. And so she went ahead and moved up here and started work. And I was at home with our two sons, aged 10 and 8. And my job was to pack and move with the help of friends and family. And that was an adventure. So on this Friday morning, it was 7 a.m., and I was looking at two things. I had my empty house behind me, the house that we had built to grow up in and live in, to raise our kids in. And out my driveway was a 26-foot yellow Penske moving truck. Yeah, it wasn't automatic, it was manual transmission. And we had to drive that from near Birmingham up here to Durham. And I said, okay, here we go. It was me and my two sons, but luckily I had a friend named Byron. And Byron called and said, hey, I'm gonna go with you on this trip. You're not gonna be alone. We'll swap out driving the truck. We'll swap out driving your vehicle. We'll journey together. And so we started out, and Penske trucks that are 26 feet long, completely full, do not drive very fast. We went 55 miles an hour, unless it was downhill, and then we could do 60. So it was a long trip. It's taken longer than we thought. We made it from Birmingham. We got to Atlanta. Good. Getting through Atlanta is a big deal. We got through Atlanta. We made it to right before the South Carolina border. And we stopped to take a break and refuel at exit 173. And there's not a lot going on at exit 173. There's a McDonald's, there's a gas station, there's a hotel, and there's a restaurant. And we got there, and we did everything you do at a break. We stretched our legs, we got something to eat, we walked around, refueled the truck, used the restroom. Everybody was ready to go. Got back in the truck, and everybody was ready except the Penske. It was not ready to go. It said, I am stopping right here. This is the end of my journey. So we were able to get it in first gear and slowly creep to the McDonald's parking lot and sit there and hang out. So we got the chairs out of the back of the truck. We sat in the shade. We threw Frisbees. And I called Penske, and they said, we will send somebody there in the next few hours to help you. And that's what happened. So we waited for 3 hours, and the mechanic showed up. The mechanic was very helpful, good guy, could not fix the truck. So he said, this truck is broken. So we sat there just waiting what to do. And then we had time to kill. We're waiting to see if Penske was going to help us, or how were they going to help us? Are they sending a new truck? Are they going to send a tow truck to tow our moving truck? Are we stuck here? Am I going to make it to Durham? Will I make orientation on Wednesday morning? I didn't know, and I sat there, and after a while, we all got bored. Facebook only lasts so long, and then that even gets old. So we sat there, what do we do? And I started reflecting on my life. What have I done? I was an engineer for 17 years. Things were okay. I was an officer in my company. Our kids were invested in their school. We had a good community. I had family. We had friends that loved us. What am I doing? Have I screwed up? Why am I going to Duke Divinity School? Have I lost my mind? And at that time, seeds of doubt got planted in my soul. Started doubting, what am I doing? Has God really called me to do this? Luckily, Byron, my friend, was there. He helped steady the ship. So I was bouncing to and fro, worried what's going to happen. He steadied me. He said, no, it's going to work out. Penske will get here. Help with the kids. We're going to make it. Sure enough, at 7 o'clock, Penske showed up with a huge tow truck and towed our moving truck straight to our apartment outside of Durham. And we made it. Now, Naomi's journey did not turn out as she expected either. She had to leave Bethlehem. For some reason, the house of bread was without food. There was a famine. And her husband and her 2 sons had a journey to Moab, this land that had food. And that was likely not the best destination they could dream up, because in Israel's history, there were provisions against that country. In Moses' last speech, his farewell address, he said, remember the Moabites, because they didn't care for us kindly when we needed help. And he excluded them from joining the community of Israel. But that was a long time ago. So they went to this place that did not have a great history and searched for food. And when they got there, her husband died. Stayed there 10 years, and her 2 sons got married. Probably not to the people she dreamed up, but to 2 Moabite women. And things were looking better. But then her 2 sons died. They were sick and they died. And Naomi's life did not turn out like she expected. It was sad. It felt hopeless. Where was God? What was Naomi to do? She heard that back in Bethlehem there was food. The famine was over. She said, what we'll do, we will journey together. We'll take the road back to Israel or go back to the land where there's food, because there's provisions to care for widows in my community. She got Ruth, she got Orpah, and they went together and started on the road. They left with the intention of all going together back to Bethlehem. And they started their journey, and they started down the road, and then they stopped. Naomi stopped, and she looked at Ruth, and she looked at Orpah, and she said, no, go back to your land, go back to your mom. I want to give you a chance in life. Don't journey with me. You can turn back and go home. She said this was not one of those guilt things someone tells you. I'm from the South. I'm used to somebody saying, you don't need to come. It's okay. You're busy. Don't worry about it. Somebody else will come see me. It's not one of those things I grew up in with the guilt in my family and friends. No. Naomi meant this. She meant, you are guilt-free. You can go. And she gave them a blessing. She said, may God deal kindly with you as you have dealt with me and the dead. May God deal kindly. And that's just not a regular blessing. Dr. Ellen Davis translates kindly as good faith. It's a key characteristic of the God of Israel. It's God who gives this loyalty and this love, this generosity, this grace to God's people. And it's unfailing, and it lasts. Hesed is the word. And that is what she blessed him with. May God deal kindly with you and be with you in your journey and never let go of you and help you. It was a wonderful blessing. And that same characteristic of God is supposed to be mirrored in us. We're supposed to be able to show that same love and generosity and care and compassion for other people. We're supposed to see another person in need and help them. That's what God expects, and that's what Israel believed, and that's what we believe. But that argument did not work. There was tears, and Naomi sat there, and Ruth and Orpah looked at her, and they cried, and they said, no, we will go with you. So Naomi thought, and she moved to a logical argument. She said, look, there's provision, sure, that there was another son would take you into their family because your husband died, but that doesn't apply here. That doesn't work. She threw logic out the window. And she ended that with saying, and why go with me? Because the hand of God is turned against me. She's interpreting her life, what had happened to her, that God is against her. So why would you journey with someone that was in dire straits, that like a hopeless wanderer? Why go with Naomi? She had her emotional plea, her logical plea, and her theological plea. You do not have to go. Orpah looked at her and listened to her mother-in-law and did what her mother-in-law said. And she kissed her. And she walked away and started to go back home. So Ruth is there. Ruth is there in the middle. She sees the back of Orpah's neck on one side. She sees Naomi on the other. At that point, what is she to do? It's decision time. And she does something unexpected. She does something that goes beyond the law, beyond the call of duty maybe. She says, I will stick with you. I will cling with you. I will go with you. She exceeded Naomi's expectations. She exceeded the law. And it wasn't a story like I wish it was. I wish God would have given her a dream and said, hey, go with, when this happens, you need to go with Naomi. That's the land to go in. Go back to Bethlehem. Because that faith would make sense to me. Or maybe an angel, a messenger of the Lord came and said, hey, when this happens, you need to go. Don't choose where you live. Choose going to Israel. Or I wish she'd had time to go home and contemplate her decision. Test the thing, get her fleece outside her door, see if it's dry or wet a couple of times. Decide, is this what I'm supposed to do? Because that, to me, I like faith like that, when it's easier, somewhat easier. When someone would tell me exactly what to do, and I could trust that message. Of course, God still gives us messages. Naomi sat there, and Ruth looked at her. And Ruth did not have that divine intervention that I think of in other stories. But instead, she went with her heart. She loved Naomi. She offered this good faith. With her eyes, she saw someone in need. And she saw them. And saw that need was greater than mine. And she put somebody's needs before her own. And she loved her neighbor. And they journeyed back together, and they went to Bethlehem. And there they found food. And there they found community. And there they found God. And Ruth said, do not let me turn back. Do not make me turn back. Where you go, I will go. I will live where you live, and your people will be my people. And your God will be my God. And when you die, I will die. But what happens to you will happen to me, because we're in this together. We are not alone. That doubt that stayed with me at exit 173, those seeds of doubt stayed with me when I came in this room a couple years ago. I sat in that chair, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm an engineer. Everybody here looks really smart. They look really young. I don't know what I am in this group. How do I fit in? But the worship service was great. Orientation was fantastic. Everything I heard just blew me away. It was a starburst, and that doubt went away for a period of time. And then something happened. Classes started. And things started happening I did not understand. People were talking in this strange tongue. It was this theological language I had not heard. I knew great engineering terms in physics and applied sciences, but things like exegesis and soteriology and Christology and these weird words that I had no reference point for. What are they talking about? And then I started reading books from people I never heard of before. Books written a long time ago. Irenaeus, who? What? Who is this? Who is this person? Why am I reading this person? How am I supposed to decide what they're trying to say? And I was lost. I was a ship at sea adrift again. And that doubt was there, and I thought, maybe this is not what God called me to do. Maybe I need to throw in the towel. Maybe I can quit. It's still early. I can quit now, and I can go back. We get a Penske again, or maybe a U-Haul this time, and we can go back home. We can change it up. But then something happened that I did not expect. I left class one day, and I was confused. I must have had a look of I was lost. And somebody, a classmate, another first year, stopped me. Her name was Shiloh. And Shiloh came to me, and she said, well, are you okay? I said, no, I am anything but okay. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I can do this work. I don't know if God wants me to be here. But just outside of 0016 downstairs, she grabbed me. She said, let's pray right now. She grabbed my hands. I said, right now? She said, yes. I said, there are people around. She said, that's okay. I don't care. And she took my hands and embarrassed me and prayed for me. And she said, God, I know you have a place for Jim to be here. You've called him to ministry. He is in the right place at the right time. Help him see that. Give him the mercy and the grace and the justice. Give him some love. Let him know he's supposed to be here. And that steadied the ship. And the next week, I was having more issues and more problems. I was struggling in Old Testament precept, and my preceptor was very kind. His name's Tyler. And after class one day, I was talking to Tyler. I said, Tyler, I just don't know how to do this. You know, this theology and engineering, I don't see how they mix. Am I smart enough to do this kind of work? And he said, Jim, let's come talk. And he took me aside. He said, Jim, you can do this. People here, everybody here at Duke can do this work. You got to think about how you approach it. You got to relearn how you read. There's a writing center here to help you. There's people here to support you. Get it together and think about it differently. You can do this. Work smarter. He gave me some tools to help me. And then my ship was more steady. And then I had my first big paper due right after that. It was to Dr. Turner, a class called The Holy Spirit in Ministry. And it was the day before the paper was due, and I didn't know how to make it happen. You know, I'd written some stuff down, and it made no sense. I'm used to solving problems as an engineer. I don't write papers. How do you do this? And I said, Dr. Turner, engineering and theology, they don't go together. They don't make good music. It doesn't fit. What I didn't know was Dr. Turner's degree was in engineering. Before he came to seminary, before he got his PhD, before he started teaching here, he's like, no. You are wrong. The only way Dr. Turner can say that. He said, you can do this. I've done it. You can do it. Give it your best. Now, nobody took away my work or the workload. The work did not get easier necessarily. We didn't sign up for easy. You know, we're at Duke, which is good. But I knew that God was with me, and I knew I was not alone. I knew I had people journeying with me. I had Shiloh, I had Tyler, I had Dr. Turner, I had all my classmates. I had my spiritual formation group. I was not in this journey by myself. And somehow that made the difference. And I got the confidence that I could do this. And I was in the right place. I was in the right time. My faith in God was true. And that's part of what Ruth and Naomi teaches us about loving our neighbor. These folks loved me and gave me this unconditional, unexpected grace and generosity. And they helped me. They saw my need. They saw me struggling. And I had the courage to raise my hand and say, I need help. And people were there to help me. Jesus talks about loving God and loving our neighbor as key, as central to who we are as a community of faith. And they go together. They're connected. They're not bifurcated. They're not separated. They work in tandem. Ruth's love and care for Naomi drove her to go with her and make that decision at that time. We have people here to love you and care for you. We're here to worship God and love God together. They go together. This is a tuning fork. The first time I saw one used, I was at my grandmother's house and I was 6. And her piano was funky sounding. It was way out of tune. It was bad. And a guy drove up on a Harley motorcycle at the time, an old motorcycle, in a leather jacket and a helmet and got out and came in the house and was going to tune her piano. And he got out of his backpack and pulled out a tuning fork and took that tuning fork, struck it. And it made a sound, and somehow, I don't know how he did it, he could take that sound and make the piano, one string, one key of that piano, follow that sound. Some people are musically inclined and can explain this to me. David was explaining it to me before the service. I don't know how that works, but I'm an engineer, so I know how the physics of this work. It takes two prongs, it takes two tines to make the sound you hear, to get it in tune. Tuning fork works, it moves back and forth very fast. You can't see it, it's small. It takes air and puts air in compression and refraction, high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure. As it does that, it makes the air move at a certain frequency, and it moves through space. It transports the sound without moving matter. And it goes through the air, and the air moves back and forth. And one prong would not do it. One prong would not make the high pressure, low pressure. One prong on its own does not make the sound. In fact, most of the energy would go back in your hand, and your hand would shake. But this has balance. These things work together in unity. It balances out. It doesn't vibrate in your hand. Instead, it vibrates down in the air. The sound goes out, and it goes out, and it goes out until you can hear it. And we love God, and we love our neighbor. They'll go together. They resonate. That's how we make music as Christians. They vibrate, they go together, and the sound goes and goes and goes out. It goes out into our community. It goes out to us. And when we see people in need, when we really see them and see who they are, we reach out to them. We put their needs up to ours or even before ours. When we do that, then we're offering this as said, we're being gracious, we're showing kindness, we're showing mercy, we're loving our neighbor, and we're living into the covenant, and we're being God's people, and we're being followers of Jesus. You had a call in your life. You have had a call in your life. You have responded to that call. You are here. You are here at Duke Divinity School. And God will offer this promise to be with you. God will be with you in this time. But in addition, you are not journeying alone. We are together. Look around. Look around the room. It's not a rhetorical statement. Look around the room. There's a lot of people here in this room today. These are your classmates. There's some second years, some third years, administration, staff, professors. There's people in this room that want you to make it. You are not alone. We journey together. Thanks be to God.